Hello, my name is Stacy Padden. I live in Northamptonshire with my daughter Katie, who is 7 years old, and she has an HNRNPH2 gene mutation. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about this condition and what we're doing to try to find a treatment for it. So HNRNPH2 is a neurodevelopmental disorder. It's caused by a single point gene mutation. At the moment, the syndrome doesn't have a name. We just refer to it by the gene name. We're hoping we will get a name eventually to make it a little bit easier to remember. So what is a gene to start off with? Genes are made up of DNA. So DNA is all the information we have that determines who we're going to be. So everything from our skin color, eye color, our height, all that is determined by genes. The Human Genome Project estimated that humans have between 20,000 and 25,000 genes. Within the DNA, in the genes, there is a code that basically programs our body, and it's made up of 4 chemical bases which combine to form base pairs. The order of those bases determines how our bodies work, in the same way that the letters of the alphabet combine to form words. So when a gene mutation happens, there is a permanent alteration in the sequence of those letters, those chemical base pairs. It can be anything from one pair being changed all the way up to a whole chromosome being duplicated, or parts of a chromosome changing or missing. It can be really complicated, or it can just be this one particular base pair. There's a few different ways that gene mutations can happen. They can be hereditary, so a parent might be carrying a gene mutation and pass that on to their child. They can also be acquired, so something happens in your environment to make your genes change. Normally, the later in life that happens, the less chance that it will affect your whole body. It will just be certain cells that change. Often what happens with children who are born with the genetic condition that is not inherited directly from the parent in the way we normally think about it is that it is what's called a de novo mutation. So this is something that's not present in the parents, but is in every single cell of the child. And there's a couple of different ways that this might happen. The change could happen when the parents' reproductive cells are made, and therefore when they pass those cells on to form the embryo, it multiplies and goes into every cell of the child's body. It could also happen after the point of conception, but very early on in the embryonic development, so that it still affects every single part of the child's body. And when we're talking about a single point gene mutation, it is really just one tiny misspelling. If you think of your body as a library, think of all of the books on the shelves of a library, every single word in those books, and there is one tiny little typo in one word on one page of one book in the library, and that can make a huge, huge difference. So specifically talking about HNRNPH2 mutations. HNRNPH2 is a gene on the X chromosome. I won't get too much into the science, partially because I don't understand it all myself, but the gene is part of a family of HNRNP proteins, and they appear to influence the transport of information within the cells. We don't understand exactly what they do, so we don't know exactly what's not happening when the gene is mutated, but we're hoping that that's something that we can discover with further research. In all of the identified mutations so far, as I said, it's just one mutation in a single base pair in the gene. Most of these mutations that have been found so far are within the nuclear localization sequence, which is kind of the command center of the gene, but there have been some found outside of that as well, and they also have a pretty severe effect. About half of the identified mutations so far are the exact same mutation, so they're in the exact same point on the gene, and it's the same base pair that's been switched. We also have at least 10 other distinct variants, some that are at the same location, but it's a different base pair that's switched, and some that are at completely different locations. We don't know yet if the exact variation that people have affects how the condition presents itself. Again, that's something that we're hoping to discover through more research. And so far, most of the people that have been diagnosed with this condition are female. We think this is because the gene is on the X chromosome. The X and the Y chromosomes are the ones that determine your sex. So females have 2 X chromosomes, one of which will have the mutated gene. For boys who only get 1 X chromosome, they don't have a second HNRNPH2 gene that might support the mutated one. So it's thought that in most cases, if there was a male embryo with the mutation, that they wouldn't survive the pregnancy. But having said that, we do have some boys who are born with an HNRNPH2 mutation, so it is possible. So what happens in the body when you've got a mutation on the HNRNPH2 gene? Well, definitely causes a global developmental delay. It is the entire body affected. It's something called a neurodevelopmental condition. So it affects the way that the body develops and is manifest in lots and lots of different ways. So starting up at the top, we've got intellectual and mental changes. So all of the affected individuals have some degree of intellectual disability. They might have seizures. They might have anxiety, things like that. Vision can be affected. This is primarily a cortical visual impairment, which is not necessarily a problem with the eyes itself, but in how the brain processes visual information. We also very commonly have strabismus, which means the eyes don't line up properly, and sometimes the shape of the eyes and different facial features are affected as well. There's very common problems with speaking and eating. Lots of the affected individuals are completely nonverbal. Those that are verbal tend to have quite severe language impairments. Lots of them have problems with chewing or swallowing. Some are not able to eat by mouth at all. There are orthopedic issues, so things like scoliosis, hip problems. These can develop over time as well because of the way that the individual walks and the wear and tear on the bones. There are digestive issues, so things like reflux, chronic constipation, just the digestive tract not working quite as it should. As part of the global developmental delay, there are fine motor problems, so they have trouble doing any kind of intricate fine motor tasks, so things like self-care, feeding themselves, cleaning themselves, dressing themselves. That's all very difficult. A lot of them tend to be significantly underweight or have a failure to thrive, which can be related to the eating problems. There are often sensory and processing issues. They might have a sensory processing disorder. A lot of them find noise very overwhelming. They really dislike loud noises. Some of them do have autism spectrum disorder or ADHD. And finally, any kind of walking issues. Walking tends to come much later than usual, if it comes at all. Some of the girls and boys don't walk, and even when they do, they could be incoordinated. They could have an unusual gait, things like that. So these are all the really common things. There are some good things as well. Generally, they're quite happy, affectionate individuals, and they all absolutely love music. Music is the number one love in life for most of these people. So this is definitely classified as a rare condition. At the moment, it was only first studied and published in 2016. And at that time, there were 6 people known worldwide with the condition. And at the moment, it can only be diagnosed through a whole exome sequencing. So that's taking all of the genes in your DNA, mapping them out, and seeing where the changes have occurred. Since it was first discovered, there have been lots more discoveries, and we believe that that pace will only continue to grow as whole exome sequencing becomes more common. In the UK, the first conditions were diagnosed in 2018 as part of the DDD, Deciphering Developmental Delay Study, and we found some more through the 100,000 Genome Project as well. So this is just a look at how we are growing. So in 2017, there were 9 cases known worldwide across 3 countries. 2018, 33 cases across 7 countries. And last year, 2019, approximately 70 cases over 14 countries. Some of the first families that received an HNRNPH2 diagnosis got together and they formed the Yellow Brick Road Project. This is our charity that's working on ultimately finding a cure for this condition. They're based in the USA, but they represent HNRNPH2 families all across the world. And we have 3 main objectives, which are to fund research, to better understand the condition, to find treatment for it, and ultimately to find a cure. to raise awareness of the condition and to find more people out there who have the condition but have just not been diagnosed with it, and to connect families that are impacted by it, to bring them together, to share information, and to contribute to our understanding of the condition. So in terms of research, what we're working on in the moment can be broken down into 3 different areas. There's the work that's going on for understanding the condition. So that involves a natural history study that's being done out of Columbia University in New York by the same doctor who originally discovered the condition. And she's looking at all of the individuals who have been identified and what their symptoms are when they presented, to try to build a bigger picture of what the condition looks like and how it changes over time. There are also mouse models being done at St. Jude's Children's Hospital in the United States, again, to try to understand exactly what happens in the body when there is a mutation on this gene. We're also looking into different treatments. At the moment, the only treatment as such is to do therapies to try to improve the function of the people who have the condition, so occupational therapy, physiotherapy, speech therapy, and that sort of thing. We're also starting to look into drug repurposing to see if there are treatments out there for other conditions that could be applied to this condition, again, to improve symptoms. And ultimately, we're looking for a cure. At the moment, we believe that will be found in gene therapy. So work that's being done with things like CRISPR and taking a virus and introducing a corrected version of the gene into the virus and then infecting the person with the condition. And the virus is a dummy virus. It doesn't cause any damage, but it delivers that corrected version of the gene, and then the body regenerates it and replaces the mutated version with the corrected version. This is still all very cutting edge, but it is happening, and we're hoping that before long it can happen for our condition as well. In terms of raising awareness, unless you know somebody who has this condition, you will not have heard of it. It is so new and so small that it is just unknown in the wider population generally, but even in medical circles. So we are trying to change that. We've created an international delegate committee to represent us around the world. They're going to rare disease conferences. They're reaching out into other communities with similar presentations to our condition to see if there are people in those communities who actually have our condition but have been misdiagnosed. So things like Rett syndrome, Angelman syndrome, they can look quite similar to our condition. And even things like autism, some of our patients have autism uh, with this underlying genetic diagnosis. And so it's possible that there are people out there who have an autism diagnosis and also have this genetic change and are just unaware of it. We're looking at developing a facial recognition software with FDNA. So there are some similarities in facial characteristics among the individuals with this condition. So looking at how we can use artificial intelligence to pull out those characteristics and find more people for us. And finally, engaging with other rare disease organizations in regions around the world. So things like Genetic Alliance in the UK, Eurordis, NORD in North America, and all those sorts of things. And finally, we're working on connecting families. When you've got somebody who you love who's got this rare condition, you can really feel alone. You don't know anybody else who's ever gone through this. So making connections and finding those other people out there who know exactly what you're going through, who have gone through the exact same thing, can be such a big benefit to everybody involved. So we have a parents only Facebook group where people can post questions, just talk about things that they're going through, get advice from other parents. We've had regional meetings where we can get together with people who live locally to us. And then there's an annual family conference where all of the families are invited, and anybody who can go gets together to hear from the professionals that are doing the research, to take part in the research for the natural history study, and again, just to make those emotional and connections with other people. We've got a couple of pictures here. These are some of the girls here in the UK. This was at our first meeting in 2018 when just the 5 of them had been diagnosed. And this is from the family meeting in New York City last summer, where we had 20 different families from around the world attending. So what happens next? Research is the big thing. Research into understanding the condition and looking at different ways that we can treat it. And I've got a video I'd like to share with you. This is talking about the collaborations that are going on between our group and the doctors who are researching the condition and pharmaceutical companies, and how we're all working together to try to find a way to improve the lives of the people with this condition.
You're the wind in my sails, you're the pull of the sea, you're the wish in the well, you're my faithful belief. If the whole wide world was offered to me, still you'd be all I need.
When we first got the diagnosis, I was pretty scared. I didn't know if this was something that she was going to die from.
We got our diagnosis of HNRNPH2 and a whole bunch of letters after that. We had never, of course, heard of it before. And at 17, we seriously questioned whether or not we'd ever get a diagnosis. We wondered if the medical science would ever catch up with Emma.
My daughter Morgan was diagnosed 2.5 years ago, and we've been on a quest with other families to find a cure for this ultra-rare genetic disorder.
Just know you're all I need.
There's no way that anybody's going to be able to do this on their own. We all have to work together, and we have to use all of our resources that we have, and that includes the parents, the clinicians, the researchers, all working together to keep moving the field forward.
We believe with our hearts and souls that every patient deserves a treatment, everyone. And as a biotech industry, we have a responsibility to make sure that each patient is treated, even if it's 5 patients worldwide, or 5,000 or 50,000 patients worldwide.
I have an overarching goal throughout the course of my career to really move the needle on therapy for neurological diseases, especially in kids.
How much you really mean when I can't find no words to speak.
The new key word in the medical field is collaboration. We are so fortunate and lucky to have the collaboration between our doctors in Israel and New York and St. Jude's Children's Hospital and countless other doctors that are all collaborating together to help us find our goal.
It really is team science. We are going to get there much faster if we allow people with real deep expertise to do their thing that they're really expert in.
The best team is being built now to bring this treatment research forward. Our secret is caring. We just care.
The youngest individual we have is 2 years old, and the oldest we have is 37. And as we continue to see them grow up, we want to be able to learn more from them. We call this a natural history study.
That natural history study is critical. That Dr. Bain has that you can get as many patients enrolled in that natural history as you can.
There's this window that we need of research and development to even get to starting to look at a cure.
What's exciting is that we have been able to model the HNRPH2 mutations that are found in the kids in systems that we can study in the lab. So this gives us a platform as we begin to design therapeutic interventions where we can test them before they go back into clinical trials in children.
When we got the diagnosis, it didn't really occur to me that there could be this incredible research that was happening. We have been astounded how they are racing forward to get answers.
It's just been amazing to have that community and to feel that we have the support and to have this wonderful group that is working on research and working on connecting people.
This is a team effort, and it's the HNRNPH family.
We're so blessed and fortunate that this is the group that we've landed in, because these people are on fire.
We're chipping away at a very big problem and providing the data and the foundation that others are going to be able to also build on so that we can drive research forward.
The mission of the Yellow Brick Road Project is to reach families all across the globe.
We need you. Every family, every child that's experiencing this, we have to be together. I'm fully confident that if we can provide the resources that they need, that we're going to get to the end of this game with a cure.
You're the wind in my sails, you're the pull of the sea, you're the wish in the well, and my faithful belief. If the whole wide world was offered to me, still you'd be all I need. Oh, you'd be all I need.
Great. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to find out more about HNRNPH2 or about the Yellow Brick Road Project, you can visit our website, visit us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We'd love to have you join us. Thank you.